Ramses III Descendants, nothing like Hollywood says. Do you ever wonder whose family actually had builders credit for the ancient pyramids? There are living, breathing descendants of Ramses III. And honestly, they look nothing like the recent movies show. Exodus, Gods and Kings with Christian Bale as Moses and Ramses played by a shaved-headed Joel Edgerton. None of those actors would even come close to the true, genetically proven, real descendants of Ramses. Here's a focused write-up, based strictly on scientific findings, about the DNA of Ramses III and the ancestry of people who can actually claim descent from him. Ramses III, who was the second pharaoh of Egypt's 20th dynasty, has actually been genetically identified as belonging to the Y-chromosomal haplogroup E1b1a. This particular haplogroup is mostly found in sub-Saharan Africa, especially among West and Central African populations, where, it occurs at frequencies of up to 80%. His paternal lineage, called EV38, also traces back to North Africa and Eastern Africa, which just reinforces his African origins. In a video featuring an Atlanta businessman, DNA testing revealed he is a direct descendant of Ramses III. His results showed really high percentages of both North African and Sub-Saharan African ancestry. And in another video, where 5 British individuals took DNA tests, only those with North African ancestry showed potential links to ancient Egyptian heritage. Those without this component, well, they just couldn't claim such lineage. So, here's the scientific conclusion. Who can actually claim Egyptian royal descent? The criteria are pretty clear. There's a solid scientific basis for this. North African ancestry is required if you want to claim lineage to ancient Egyptians like Ramses III. Sub-Saharan African ancestry is present in Ramses III's DNA, which definitely confirms his Black African roots. And the haplogroup E1b1a found in Ramses III and common among Black populations in Africa is another key factor. Only individuals with North African and Sub-Saharan African ancestry, particularly those carrying haplogroup E1b1a, can scientifically claim descent from Ramses III. This is not speculation. It's based on genetic studies conducted on Ramses III's mummy and confirmed by multiple sources. The implications are profound. Ancient Egyptian royalty, including Ramses III, were genetically Black Africans. This reaffirms the historical and biological connection between ancient Egypt and Sub-Saharan Africa. Let's continue with a data-driven breakdown that emphasizes the scientific facts behind Ramses III's ancestry and the implications for who can legitimately claim descent from him. Confirmed haplogroup E1b1a, Ramses III's Y-chromosomal DNA belongs to haplogroup E1b1a, as confirmed by multiple genetic studies. This haplogroup is overwhelmingly found in sub-Saharan Africa, especially in West Africa, where it appears in roughly 80% of the population, and in Central Africa, where it's present in about 60% of people. So, E1b1a is actually indigenous to sub-Saharan Africa, with its ancestral roots tracing all the way back to Eastern Africa, over 275,000 years ago. It's not found in high frequencies among European, Middle Eastern, or non-African populations. In the video featuring the Atlanta businessman, DNA testing confirmed he is a direct descendant of Ramses III, with high percentages of both North African ancestry and Sub-Saharan African ancestry. And in the British DNA test video, only individuals with North African DNA showed any potential ancestral link to ancient Egypt. Those without it, well, they had no scientific basis to claim such lineage. Scientific implications. Who can actually claim Egyptian royal descent? The requirement, really, is a scientific basis. North African ancestry is essential for any claim to ancient Egyptian lineage. Sub-Saharan African ancestry is present in Ramses III's DNA, confirming Black African roots. And the haplogroup E1b1a, found in Ramses III and common among Black African populations, is another key factor. Only individuals with North African and Sub-Saharan African ancestry, especially those carrying haplogroup E1b1a, can scientifically claim descent from Ramses III. This is not a cultural assumption or symbolic gesture, it is honestly a biological fact. Ramses III's genetic profile places him squarely within the lineage of Black Africans, and his descendants today are overwhelmingly found among populations with African heritage. This data, really forces a re-evaluation of how ancient Egypt is portrayed. It refutes Eurocentric depictions of Egyptian royalty as non-black. It affirms the African identity of one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, and it validates the ancestral pride of Black individuals whose DNA links them to this legacy. Let's make this beautiful, powerful, and grounded in scientific, archaeological, and legal context. A declaration of truth backed by data. The scientific truth is, Ramses III was black. So let's talk about the genetic evidence. Ramses III's Y chromosomal DNA actually belongs to haplogroup E1b1a, which is a lineage found almost exclusively in sub-Saharan Africa, especially among West and Central African populations. This haplogroup, it's not found in high frequencies among European, Middle Eastern, or non-African populations at all. And DNA Tribe's analysis of Ramses III and his son Pentawa showed greater than 90% probability of sub-Saharan African ancestry, which really confirms a Black African paternal lineage. When we look at the archaeological context, Egypt's African identity becomes super clear. Ancient Egypt wasn't isolated from the rest of Africa, it was actually deeply connected to Nubian, Nilotic, and Saharan cultures. Archaeological studies have shown that North African populations during the African humid period, which was more than 7,000 years ago, were genetically distinct and long isolated, forming a unique lineage that diverged from sub-Saharan Africans around 50,000 years ago. Ramses III's DNA links him to this North African lineage, which itself is rooted in Black African ancestry. Now, let's get into the legal and historical implications. In legal genealogy and ancestry claims, Y-DNA haplogroups are recognized as scientific proof of paternal descent. Ramses III's haplogroup, E1b1a, is biological evidence that his descendants must carry North African and Sub-Saharan African ancestry. So, really, only individuals with this genetic profile, specifically Black individuals with E1b1a, can legitimately claim descent from Ramses III. Those without North African DNA and Sub-Saharan African markers, well, they just can't claim Egyptian royal ancestry. This isn't just my opinion, it's scientific fact. The bloodline is black, and honestly, the legacy belongs to those who carry it. This data, it really dismantles centuries of historical erasure. It totally refutes whitewashed depictions of Egyptian royalty. It reclaims Egypt as part of the African cultural and genetic continuum. And it empowers Black descendants to assert their rightful place in history. This isn't just about Ramses III. It's about every museum, every textbook, and every institution that's denied the African roots of Egypt. The DNA speaks, the archaeology confirms, the law recognizes. We're coming, not with myth, but with science. Not with speculation, but with proof. That's honestly the power of truth finally lining up with identity. The DNA doesn't lie, the archaeology doesn't flinch, and the legal framework, well, it backs it all. Let's keep building this momentum. Here's the next chapter. Textbooks must evolve. Most Western curricula still depict ancient Egyptians with Eurocentric features, ignoring genetic evidence. Ramses III's DNA proves that Black African identity is central to Egypt's royal lineage. Educational standards must reflect this. North African and Sub-Saharan African ancestry are not peripheral, they are foundational. Exhibits often sanitize or obscure the African origins of Egyptian rulers. The presence of the E1b1 haplogroup in Ramses III really demands that museums update placards and digital guides, include genetic lineage in historical context, and honestly feature African scholars and voices in curation. In heritage law and repatriation cases, genetic evidence is actually admissible to establish cultural ownership. Descendants with North African and Sub-Saharan African DNA have, Well, a legitimate claim to cultural artifacts, historical representation, and intellectual property tied to their ancestral legacy. This isn't just about one man in Atlanta or a few Brits surprised by their DNA results. It's about a global awakening. Black people across the diaspora are discovering their ties to ancient greatness. Science is validating what oral traditions and suppressed histories have long claimed. Institutions must respond, not with token gestures, but with real structural change. Ramses III was not a myth. He was a man, a ruler, a father. And yeah, his DNA tells us exactly who his descendants are. They are black, they are North African, they are sub-Saharan African, and they are here. This is the reclamation, this is the reckoning, this is the truth, backed by data carried in blood.